Yuki Tsukumo just sent us into the future, Choso regrets Shibuya incident, and Tengen and Kenjaku are friends somehow. There is so much to break down in this chapter, so let's just get straight into it. First of all, I want to address everyone saying Yuki is weak, as that is just unequivocally 100% just not true. This woman just dealt the most damage to Kenjaku we've seen anyone do in the series. Like, to put this in perspective, Yuki could have destroyed the entire earth with this technique had it not been for her own force of will stopping it and Tengen's barrier stopping it also at the same time in combination with each other. This whole thing, this black hole could have wiped everything out. And I think it's safe to say that this is single-handedly the most destructive feat we've seen in Jujutsu Kaisen to date. And I don't want to hear anyone say, oh, but Kenjaku tanked it, because he didn't tank it. He somehow just happened to have the most perfect technique to escape it. And that, to me, is pure 100% luck, because he even admits in this chapter that if he didn't have that technique, it would have been GG rip for him. She was 100% worthy of the special grade title. 100%. So people need to put more respect on Yuki Tsukumo's name. Now that I've got that out the way, let's talk about the emotional moments with Choso and Yuki. We get this flashback of Choso and Yuki talking at a bar, and Choso really shows his human side in this chapter, and I can already hear the Choso fans sobbing, screaming, and crying reading this breakdown here. We learn Choso heavily regrets Shibuya and that he hates that he took it basically an easier path, and he also reveals that he was the one that killed Kachizo and Eso, which to me didn't make a whole lot of sense because we know that Yuji was the one that did this. So I wonder if it's something similar to what happened with when he fought with Yuji, where he gained these memories of Yuji being his brother all of a sudden, or if he's talking about it in the sense that he let his brothers fight Yuji without him, and in return they were killed because he wasn't there because of that decision. But Choso ends up breaking down in tears, with him essentially saying he doesn't plan on surviving this fight. Well, that's how I interpreted it anyway. To me, this was Choso trying to make amends for the horrible shit that he'd done in Shibuya, and deciding to go out with one good bang, one good gesture, basically an act to try and defeat his father, Kenjaku. But Yuki just isn't letting that happen, and neither is Tengen. And a couple of videos ago, I was so confused as to who was manipulating the barrier in this place. But this chapter confirms that it was actually Tengen that was manipulating the barrier, because at first I was confused whether it was Choso or Yuki, or just even Kenjaku manipulating the barrier. I thought people were just moving in and out of their own free will onto the battlefield. Turns out it was actually Tengen, so I'm glad we got clarification on this. But Choso prepares to fire this blood disc at Kenjaku, and it reminds me of Krillin's Destructo disc. And Yuki tells him to die here as a curse so he can continue living as a human. And man, that line hit hard. Like, after that little flashback, seeing a human tell Choso that it's essentially okay, you were misled as a curse, but you get a second chance to live on as a human. Her giving him that second chance hit hard, bro, like real hard. Tengen sends Choso away so Yuki can use her final technique of this series, basically. Well, I'm assuming it's her final technique of the series. I don't see any way that Yuki survives this. And Tengen and Kenjaku have this little interaction where Kenjaku says Tengen looks silly like that, basically referring to how Tengen has evolved now. And he says, you know, did you choose that look? Basically roasting the shit out of him, basically. And then he even laughs, saying that Tengen reminds him of Sukuna. But he doesn't actually say that, it's just implied because a flash-up of Sukuna shows in the panels, which was interesting in and of itself, because that implies that Kenjaku either knows Sukuna personally or has fought with him, or they may have even been allies in the past, because we don't know a whole lot about Kenjaku and Sukuna's interactions. But this is where the chapter gets absolutely insane. Yuki grabs Kenjaku by the leg, and that's a little homage to Yamamoto grabbing Aizen in Bleach. Shout out to GX York for pointing that out on Twitter. I'll link him down below, and go subscribe to his YouTube as well. But Yuki starts piling an extreme amount of mass into himself, basically, and Kenjaku quickly realizes what's about to happen, and that Yuki's going to create a black hole to take herself out along with Kenjaku. And the black hole starts to grow and starts to destroy everything around her, with Yuki saying to Kenjaku, you can control gravity, but aren't you thinking a little bit too small? Gravity, time, mass, it all boils down to one thing, but then it gets cut off as the entire area is completely and utterly annihilated. So no surprise, Kenjaku manages to survive this, because of course he does. It just wouldn't be that easy, right? But there's some details here that you may have missed, that even I missed, that Armcaps on Twitter pointed out, so I'm not taking credit for this theory. If Yuki's creating a black hole here, then that means time dilation must have occurred at some point during this whole thing, right? With a quick little handy dandy Google, we can learn that gravitational time dilation dilation occurs because objects with a lot of mass create a strong. The gravitational field is really a curving of space and time, and the stronger the gravity, the more space-time curves, and the slower time itself proceeds. Now let's cast your minds back to when Kenjaku first entered the Star Tomb here. It was 12 a.m. midnight. It was going to be pitch black outside in the real world, and after this attack, we see the sun shining completely and utterly brightly through a roof that was destroyed here. Now this means one of two things. Number one, everything I just said is true. Yuki curves space and time, slowing time down, and in that whole area, and we don't know how long has passed since that has happened. Or number two, the more boring theory is that none of that even happened, and Yuki, Choso, and Kenjaku were fighting for a bare minimum 8 hours for the sun to have come up. And personally, I'm going to go with Armcap's theory here, because I'm going to use Interstellar as an example. In the film Interstellar, we see the team reaching Miller's planet, and they are only there for a couple of hours, and 23 years passes on Earth. Now let's say Kenjaku was trapped in that black hole for like a minute, give or take, right? He could have lost up to a couple of weeks or even longer due to this because of that time slowing down, which would give our gang more than ample time to have prepared to face and beat up Kenjaku. And personally, I really love this theory, and I guess we'll just have to wait to see if it turns out whether it's true or not. But we see Kenjaku explaining to Tengen how he survived was due to the technique of anti-gravity, which we learned was actually Yuji's mother's technique, which in this translation says was engraved in her, which is a big reveal because I'm pretty sure we didn't know that Yuji's mother was actually a sorcerer up until this point. But Tengen fades away and Kenjaku approaches the body of Tengen, the real body of Tengen, all curled up at the bottom of a tree, which is wild because that means all this time we've been seeing Tengen as basically a shadow clone this entire time, and he's been manipulating the barrier via this separate body slash clone, which like maybe I missed that detail, but like it is absolutely wild to see that. But that is everything from me. Overall, this chapter was absolutely insane. Jujutsu Kaisen has been a true and absolute pleasure to read and review this year. But this will be my last video now until after Christmas. I'm going to be taking a little break, some time off to go spend with friends and family and all that good stuff. So I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas. And if you don't celebrate it, I hope you all have a wonderful holidays. I hope you all hug your loved ones and go and tell them all that you love them and all that good shit. And yeah, I'll catch you all guys after the break. Much love, big kisses. Enjoy your time off. Enjoy whatever you're doing over the holidays. Enjoy your Christmas, whatever it is that you celebrate. And much love, big kisses. Bye-bye.